Hi, and welcome back to another episode of Live Healthy Now. I'm so excited today to bring you our first guest of the new podcast series, who's going to speak to us about something really important and really powerful, which is taking care of yourself through what you eat and really diving into the impact that your emotions and anxiety can have on your diet and your weight and how you feel in yourself. So today I've got Carlotta, who's joining me from Texas, and she's going to share a lot of her wisdom and how she works in her accountability programs with you. So hi, Ashley.
Thank you so much for having me. Do you know how exciting it is to be the first guest? I mean, that's an honor. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Yeah, and it's great to have you here. So just to get started, before we dive into what you do and what living healthy means to you, I just wanted you to share what your one healthy habit is that makes the biggest difference in your life.
Sure. I think one thing that I had to learn that I want everybody to know is don't restrict your food throughout the week, because what that's going to do is that's going to set you up to binge eat and emotional eat and almost be rebellious on the weekend if you're not eating enough and you're not eating balanced meals throughout the week.
Yeah, oh, I love that. Yeah, because so many people do go at it. It's kind of that deprivation, I've got to restrict, and then I can have all the treats and the cheats on the days off, which are very often the weekend, aren't they? So yeah, that's a really good habit to have in place. And when you're working with your clients, how do you describe living healthy to them and why it's important?
Sure. I mean, I have a lot of people that come to me because they're either stuck or they're not motivated. And so my philosophy is I need you to add a little bit in at a time and not consider yourself going on a whole diet and being like, okay, Monday starts my diet, right? Like that's not what I want. I want you to just consistently eat well-ish is kind of how I say, you know what I mean? Like it's what you do most of the time that matters. And that means that there may be room for like a treat and a glass of wine, and you might be going to a birthday party or, something on the weekend to where you're doing, but you're not going to go into that all or nothing, right? You're going to go into that still with the same balance that you practice during the week, because you know that there's going to be other opportunities for you to have treats or have things like that. And so clients come to me kind of wanting that, the moderation, so to speak, living in moderation, which it's never going to be perfect, but the more you practice it, the better you'll get at learning how to fuel your body and eat balanced and feel good about it. Feel good about being disciplined most of the time.
Yeah, I really like that. And you mentioned there practicing, and obviously that links into habits, which I'm all about at Life Now Coaching. So how do you work with your clients to really help them to practice? Because we all know how difficult it is to get started and to keep the momentum and motivation going.
Right. So I know even like for myself, like emotional eating has always been an issue for me all throughout my teens, all throughout my 20s. And it wasn't until I hit 30 actually that I was just done. And I was so fed up with starting a new diet, losing some weight, gaining it back, and that cycle that I was on. So I really wanted to dig deeper as to why I kept overeating in certain situations and why I was undereating in a lot of other situations, because it was almost like a game to me, It was almost like I needed to go burn 600 calories in the gym, because later I knew that that meant that I could have a large plate of nachos, have some beers, and I wasn't balancing it right. So with my clients, I believe that accountability is key. My business is Better Health by Accountability, because my clients are going to send me pictures of what they're eating throughout the day. And my job is to give them guidance around that, making sure that they're having enough protein, that they have the balance of fat and carbs in there too. And it also is going to make them pause and think about it first. What am I going to put in my body? Am I going to grab my kids' leftovers that were sitting on the table and just eat them because they were there? Am I going to grab, some crackers that are not going to give me any nutrients and pop them in my mouth just because they're there? Well, no, I'm going to have to show my coach what I'm eating, right? And so it's in the beginning, it's almost like they're doing it and making wise choices to please me. But that's not the goal of this. The goal is so that they are going to be able to do this on their own when they're not working with me anymore. And I remind them of that all the time. I'm also helping them to plan their workouts. I'm checking in with them to make sure that they get them done. I'm giving them reminders to drink enough water. And sometimes we talk about other things like having a daily devotional or a morning routine, an evening routine, going to bed, getting sleep. So really like a holistic approach to health and ensuring that they're not making excuses. That's why they come to me, is because they keep making excuses to themselves and they're like, I just need somebody on top of me. And if they're doing things consistently, the habits, like you said, they fall into place, and it's just, they find food freedom and confidence, and it's really fun. It's fun once you start getting control of your health.
Yeah, that's brilliant. So just touching on what you said at the start there about emotional eating and your journey with that, it would be great if you could talk a little bit more about that, because the point you then made at the end about eating and food being fun is, I guess, the goal, isn't it? We don't want to be constantly obsessing over what we eat and always having to think about it and worry. And so, yeah, kind of what's your story, Ashley, and how did that lead you to do what you do now?
Right. So at a very young age, when I was like 6 years old, I was comparing myself to even like little girls around me. And I know some people are like, that is so young. How do you even remember that? Well, I had to wear a leotard and tights, and I was going to be in this little ballet show. And I was in tears. I was looking around, and that was the first time I told my mom, like, I'm like, Mom, I'm fat. And she was like, honey, you're not fat. Like you're strong and you're healthy. It's funny because doctors said I was going to be like 5'10", and I'm actually only 5'4". So I think I grew quickly when I was younger. But also our parents didn't necessarily have all of the information that we have now. And sometimes we even have too much information now and people get confused. But I mean, I didn't grow up drinking water as my main source of hydration. Like we were drinking juice, and just labels. Our parents didn't read love labels. I should speak for my own, and so we were probably eating a lot of things that weren't good for us. So throughout my teen years, I was always like overweight, and I would watch what other girls were eating, especially like the same age as me and stuff. And I remember thinking like, how are they not eating all of that? Like I'm hungry. And so it's almost like sometimes I would eat their leftover. It was just bad. It was like, but what I realized is through my 20s that I was doing those things because I was emotional. I was trying to make myself feel better by feeling really full. And the difference between satisfying physical hunger and emotional hunger is when you're eating, when you're emotional, you never are actually satisfied. So you keep going. And that's where like binging comes in. And I don't necessarily, I think that there's like a wide range of binging disorders. I think that I could have been on the low range of that. Now, would I've eaten a whole entire large pizza, for example? No, I knew that I couldn't do that. But would I have four or five, like maybe half of the pizza? Yeah, no problem. And so again, I kept starting like, okay, I'm going to be really good. And I would track my calories and I would lose weight in my 20s. But then I realized that once I was off whatever diet I was doing, I would gain it back again. So I was counting calories, but it wasn't necessarily the quality of the calories that I was eating, because again, I would like restrict. I might have like an egg for breakfast and I'd have like some fruit or some salad for lunch. But little did I know, I wasn't fueling myself with enough protein to keep me full. And then again, by the end of the day, it was like I'd have a big dinner, I wondered why I was craving like wine and snacks at night. And it just was because I was scared. I was scared. Like, we talked about, like, I was actually scared to eat a lot because I thought that that was going to make me gain weight. So I just had this like really rough relationship with food. I gained 50 pounds with my first pregnancy. I gained 45 pounds with my second pregnancy. And after I had her, I was I was just done. So I started kind of watching other friends around me. I had made some new friends at the time because I was like in this new mom circle, and I had to start being vulnerable and being like, okay, I know this is going to sound weird, but like, can you tell me what you have for breakfast? Can you tell me what you're having for lunch? Like, cause I feel lost. I feel confused. You can look and research like what to eat. And, I didn't necessarily want to have chicken at every meal. I didn't want healthy eating to be boring. And so little by little, I learned not to fear food and not to think of my weight loss as a race, but to think of it as a journey and to learn from it. And now I know that to be sustainable and to keep the weight off, you have to do it slowly. Because if you just restrict and you stop eating sugar, you stop eating carbs, you're just, what about when you intro that in? You're not going to know what to do with it, and the weight's going to go back on. And so finding that was so, I can't even tell you, refreshing to me. And I'm like happy. Like for the first time, I'm not to say that I haven't been happy at periods in my life, but food is a big part of our life and our body image. And, I shouldn't say that our weight matters, but, you want to be within that range, that BMI that feels like healthy and comfortable to you. And so to be there, I just love to empower other women and show them that you can too. I know that it feels overwhelming, but if you're consistent, it'll happen. And I did have another baby and I did post my progress on Instagram to lose the baby weight. And it wasn't for any reason other than to hold me accountable, which is why I'm so passionate about being accountable. But I've maintained my weight. I'm going to be 40 soon, for almost 10 years, other than that little hump of having another baby. But yeah, it can be done. It's not easy. I have to work at it every day, but it can be done.
Yeah, our stories are so similar because I also really struggled, and I would say I still struggle with emotional eating, even though I do what I do. Probably from an older age than what you were at 6, but I definitely became very aware of the size that I was. And, I'm 46, and when I was young, very much like you, there was no real knowledge and education about what you were eating. That's, when microwaves first came out, and processed food that came in a box that you could pop in the microwave was like a parent's dream. Lots of quick meals, especially for lunch times or during school and so on. But yeah, I grew up being really disordered in my eating. I had a lot of years where I binged. I wasn't bulimic, but I definitely had, disordered eating, and I used to really purge on food, knowing that I was going to make myself sick afterwards. And it's something that I've been very interested in since coming into this sector, because of how I have still struggled, and I see so many other women on this constant roller coaster of emotions with food, using it as a reward, using it as a punishment. You mentioned about counting calories and, thinking, well, I've eaten that many calories, now I've got to exercise to burn it off. I was exactly the same. I only exercised really as a sticky plaster for what was going wrong with my eating. And it was only probably about 6-7 years ago that I really had a complete overhaul and reset in how I approached food and exercise, and a lot of that came from the mindset. And I think what you're touching on there is, you can give people the information, but they have to really understand what's going on and what their relationship with food is, don't they, to be able to make that change happen.
Yeah, that's so true. And I mean, I do have a lot of clients that work with me and my accountability coaches that are also working alongside with a therapist as well. Especially if you find yourself in your 40s and 50s and you've really never even worked on this before. It does take work. It does take pausing. I can't say that enough. Like, you have to be able to step away when you're having these like intense cravings for comfort, whatever it is, to make you feel good, and be like, what is it that I actually am feeling right now? And I know this is hard for me, and I think this is why I didn't do it for so long, is because you don't necessarily want to sit in those feelings and think about what's going on. Are you really stressed about how your child is doing in school? So you feel like ice cream is going to fix that? No, it's not going to fix that. Did you get in a fight with your husband or your partner? And now you're like, oh, I just want to go like through the drive-through, or I want to drink a whole bottle of wine. Is that going to fix the situation? No, you're actually going to feel worse after you do that. So do you instead need to go take a bath? Do you need to call a friend? Do you need to call your mom? You know what I mean? Like, so to be able to pause and ask yourself, am I actually hungry? Most of the time, the answer is no. And if you are hungry, you do need to eat. But I can tell you that you don't need to have something that's going to be crap or something that's not going to make you feel good, to where you make yourself sick. Can you tell us a little bit more about a situation where you would eat and make yourself feel sick? And then, yeah, what would you do in those situations? Would you throw up, or would you just like wait until you felt better?
No, I would throw up. I used to have a part-time job in a bar when this was probably about age 19, 20. And I'd come in really late, say 11:30, midnight maybe, after working in the bar. And I would just go on this binge of opening the biscuit tin, eating biscuits, having multiple slices of toast with lots of butter and jam on, ice cream. They were the three things that I used to have. And I used to do it in an order like that because I knew that when I ate the ice cream last, that's what would come up first when I was making myself sick. And it's very intentional. And there were other times when I would go out to the shops knowing that I was going to buy things to eat, but thinking it's fine because I'm going to have all of those calories and then I'll just be sick afterwards, not knowing how it all worked and that I was still absorbing the calories in some of that food. But yeah, it was something that I struggled with for quite a number of years. And as I said, the emotional side of it's always been something that has been part of me, but I've very much been able to have a great relationship with for those past kind of 6 years. And yeah, there's times when I do eat something or I do have a couple of glasses of wine and then I think, actually, I didn't really need that. I needed something. And that's your point, isn't it? It's that actually we need something, but we have these habits that make us think it's the food, or in a lot of cases, alcohol as well, because we've become accustomed to that through our culture. And again, you mentioned this, that food plays such a huge part in our life and our society. It's part of, for many of us, our lifestyle, and we've grown up always known that. And so we choose food when we need comfort or when we want reward. And, it's finding those other things, isn't it? And I love how you explain pausing, because I do focus on that as well. And that's what I say to people for any number of situations, things they're wanting to change, is just press that pause button and just think, is this how I want to react? Whether it's reacting, say, from a mindset point of view and thinking really negatively, or losing your temper or patience, or choosing in a situation to eat certain food and think, actually, is that what I really want? Or is this a situation where I just need something to make me feel better because I feel really tired? And so I really like what you're emphasizing there, because that's what we're trying to share in this podcast, is how to build healthy habits and to just kind of recognize what might be going on for you and whether this is an area you struggle with and could actually, improve and make some very small changes, but feel much better overall. So I just want to ask you a little bit more on that emotional side when you are working with people and what you see, because I know you focus a lot on anxiety as well. So kind of what is it that you see mainly coming through? Is there a pattern there that a lot of people seem to have that does stem from childhood and those habits that have been embedded from quite a young age?
Yeah, as you were talking, I was thinking of situations where I'll talk to a client on a phone or a potential client, right, who's interested in working with me. And they'll say, okay, I really want to get started, but I have a vacation coming up. I have a wedding I'm going to. I have a girls' night. And so they kind of almost think like, well, once I get through those things, then I'll start I'll start the journey. And I always tell them, you're never going to have like 3 months blocked out to where you can just only focus on yourself and it's only going to be you and
Yeah.
easy, especially if you're a mom out there and you have I mean, it's never really all about you, right? And so I encourage them to get started on their journey of figuring this out, even when they have things going on, right? So, for example, if I have a client who's going to be going out with their friends, sometimes they'll say, "Oh my gosh, I'm nervous. I have a ladies' night out. I'm starting to feel anxious about it because I know that they're going to order this. I know there's going to have drinks, and I know they're going to have dessert and all these things." Especially, I mean, ladies, look around at who you're hanging with. Now, I'm not saying you need to go find a whole bunch of other friends, but if you're continuously going out with people who are overdoing it on a regular basis, that's something to look into. I mean, and maybe you need to say no sometimes, but my big thing is that you don't need to say no if these are people that you want to be hanging around and stuff, but you can say no at the table that you're sitting at. And I don't mean that you're going to be missing out on like the fun of what they're having and stuff, but if they're ordering like a bunch of appetizers and if they're getting these like decadent entrees and you know that they're, just have another drink. Oh, come on, we're having fun. Ladies night out. Woohoo! Just have another drink. You can say, no, thank you. And you don't need an explanation. Yes, sometimes people are going to give you trouble. Well,
Mm.
like, oh my gosh, are you on a diet again? Are you watching your weight again? Come on, you only live once. You don't need to. I coach people through like how to handle those situations. And I also explain to them that if somebody is giving you a hard time about your choices and what you want to do, that is their own insecurity. And I can even say that from experience on how even maybe I've treated like my mom or my sister or one of my best friends in the past. It's almost like it turns a switch on in you that's like, well, maybe I shouldn't be eating those things, but if they're not going to eat them, then what does that say about me if I'm eating? And so
Yeah.
it just makes you analyze yourself. Um, and I have a lot of women who struggle, I mean, just with anxiety and depression in general. And I feel like that could be a whole other podcast and topic. But again, we are trying to treat those things and the way that we're feeling. A lot of times we're treating them with food. And sometimes we're not eating and we're under eating because of anxiety. And if only we would fuel our body well and eat sometimes when we aren't hungry, it would make us feel better in our minds. And so I don't know if you deal with that with people as well, but there are a lot of women who the emotional eating standpoint isn't all about overeating. It's also about under eating and restricting too. Um, and I just think it's so important to tell women like you can't punish yourself for something that you did the night before. Let's say you went on a binge, not even necessarily a binge, but let's say you like really overdid it the night before. That doesn't mean that you don't eat the next day. And that doesn't mean that you keep overeating 4 days at a time. Ladies, how many times have you done that where you're like, well, I screwed up yesterday, so I'm just going to
Yeah.
finish out the next 3 days. And then on
Yeah.
Monday, I'm going to start eating well again. And so it's all about picking up the pieces and getting back on track sooner rather than later. And it's what you do most of the time that matters.
Yeah, there's so much there that just all comes together to say, it's all about our mindset, isn't it? It's about the way we've been taught, and that story we've got in our head of everything always starts on a Monday. If it goes wrong during the week, even if it's a Wednesday, we'll just forget about it and start again next Monday. If I'm going out on the weekend, I have to go all out. I can't just go out and have a good time and know that I've chosen what I want. I've got to get worked up beforehand, and then I'm going to just end up caving in and then feel guilty the next day. And I'm sure many people listening will be able to resonate with that, those stories have been repeated so many times through our lives. And it is really all about getting to a point, if you mentioned it right at the start, of just being normal, of just knowing, doesn't matter what day of the week it is, I can eat what I want to eat, because I'm now aware of what I put into my body and what it does to me and how I feel on the back of that. And I know have you got two daughters, Ashley?
Yes, I have an older son and I have two daughters.
Two daughters, yeah. So I've got one daughter, and obviously we've spoken about a lot of our challenges with food and our weight stemming really, early in our childhood. And that's something that as a mother really has, been on my mind since having my daughter, really, about how I can make sure she doesn't have the same relationship that I've had with food. My daughter also has celiac disease, which does mean that there's always a focus on food. She was diagnosed when she was 7. But yeah, I just wonder, because that's something I really focus on in my business as well, around helping to normalise healthy habits so that kids do grow up just knowing what a healthy lifestyle is, so that we can try and avoid some of these things that have really plagued not just women. I know they do definitely affect men as well, to have this really strong, unhealthy relationship with food. So, how have you managed that as a parent?
Yeah, and that's something I talk to my clients about too, is like our little ones are watching us, right? And my girls are still little. They're 7 and 3. And so they've never known, I mean, in their life, they've never known a mom who has not been exercising, who has not been eating, fruits and vegetables and making sure that I have protein in every meal. Because again, my journey started right then. And I think knowing that I was even pregnant with a girl, I was like, okay, all right, I have to be like a really good example to her. You know what I mean? And show her sometimes, like last week, for example, like she said something, I was giving the kids ice cream for dessert after they had their dinner. And my son was getting it and he goes, Mom, do you want some? And Brinley, my middle daughter, she goes, no, Mom doesn't eat dessert. And I'm like, Brinley, that's not true. I said, if I am going to have a little bit of dessert, I like to wait until you guys are in bed so that I can actually enjoy it and think about peace, what I'm eating. You know what I mean? And so anyways, we kind of had a laugh around that and stuff. No, I'm like, no, I definitely have dessert, but I have to really, really not only want it, but like it. Because a tip that I give my clients, it's like, just because you're at a birthday party and you're celebrating a birthday, I used to be that person that, like, no matter what, I was almost like afraid to hurt somebody's feelings. So I was like, sure, like even at a kid's birthday party, sure, I'll have some. And I realized I don't even like this. You know what I mean? I'd have a couple bites of it and then I would just finish eating it for no reason. Now, sometimes I'll just take a bite. And if I'm not like, oh my gosh, that was so good, I'm like, okay, I don't need this, because I know that's going to be like, whatever, we'll call it 500 calories for that small little piece. And it's like, no, I worked hard today. Like, I don't feel that I need to have that, and again, it's showing your kids that you can have a balance, and teaching them too, like when they come home from school and they're hungry, like I don't want them to just grab for chips, like, because then they're going to come to me 4 seconds later and still say that they're hungry again. So it's like, yeah, okay, that's fine. You can have some chips. And I try to buy like the healthy kind of chips. But I also want you to pick like a vegetable to go with that, like some carrot sticks or something. And then I'm going to roll up some turkey for you, or something to where like it is balanced. And even my 10-year-old like has a really good grasp on this now, which is so cool. And I'll even see him like critiquing my husband sometimes too. He's like, Dad, that's just all carbs. So, living with a health coach isn't like the best thing ever. But back to what we were saying about eating regularly and making sure that no matter what day of the week it is and stuff, I find that clients can drop off from exercise so quickly too. They'll tell me like, well, the summer was just busy. And so I just kind of stopped my exercise routine this summer. Like, that's like 3 months of time. Like, you don't get to just stop. Now, granted, I know that we go through seasons and stuff like that, but it's important to find something that you can continue to do when the different seasons of life get busy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And your podcast, Get Healthy Now, it's like, you got to do something now. You don't get to just keep putting it off. And I think that that's important to show our kids. Like, even if we go on vacation with them, like you better bet we're going to be going on a hike. We'll find somebody to go. We'll find a place to go on a walk. I'll throw on a 20-minute YouTube video to do, like that. Just because you're doing something else and you're experiencing something new doesn't mean that you're out of your routine of eating like some fruits and some vegetables. Like, do you indulge a little bit more? Probably. But you just have to find that balance, because when you find it and you grasp it and you have it, that's when you're really living that healthy lifestyle that all of us want. I don't think anybody says, oh, I don't want that. I want to just go all out and then I want to diet again. Like, that sucks. It's not fun.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And I think that's a really good way to wrap everything up, is that balance is what it's about. And it's about making it fit with your lifestyle. And you've given some great ways there of how in your family, you're trying to create a very achievable, normal family lifestyle that has you eating lots of different foods, exercising together in ways that don't even present themselves as exercise. It's fun. You're a family. You go out, you go to the park, you go on a walk, you're on holiday, you go on sightseeing. That's, your movement for the day and so on. And that's exactly where I come from as well. And the message, I want people to have is that it is about balance. You can't just put yourself on a diet for 2 weeks, even less sometimes, or maybe a month or so, and think, right, I've got that holiday, I'm going to diet. Then once I've done it, I can go back to normal life. Forget about all of that stuff that's too hard. It is about finding what works for you, isn't it? So just on that, is there any one thing that you would say to listeners that they can do to get started on this? Is there a really simple step that's something which works well with yourself and your clients?
Yeah, absolutely. I think my number one tip, which seems so simple, is make sure you're drinking enough water. I want you to start with a big cup of water in the morning. Drinking water is known to increase your metabolism, not a ton. It's not going to start going like this, but it does help. And it makes you think about, again, if you're actually hungry or if you're dehydrated. I think that would be one of my number one tips, truly. And don't eliminate any food groups unless you have to, like your daughter. And just make sure you're having protein at every meal. And if you don't know what protein is and you don't know what good sources are, that's what Google's for. And if you start Googling all these things and you're confused and you know what you need to do, but you're not getting started, then you probably need some support and accountability. And that's what we can do for you.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. Yeah. So I've just got a really fun little either or quiz for you to tell me out of each pair which one you would have, or maybe you've probably already got it as one of your habits. So 5 healthy habits, which one would be for you? So walking or running?
Walking.
Yeah. I know the answer to the next one then. Water or juice?
Well, I'm going to say water. I actually don't even buy juice at home anymore at all. I'd rather get it through fruit, natural fruit.
Yeah, great. Me too. A morning or a bedtime routine?
Oh, I'd say a good morning routine so that you don't just hop and get into work and get overwhelmed and stressed before your day's actually started.
Yeah. And then when it comes to kind of relaxation and restoration, do you prefer time on your own or time with others?
That's such a loaded question because I love people, but at the end of the day with my family and my 3 kids, I would like to be alone. But if a girlfriend texts me, you bet I'm probably going to go to her house.
And then finally, meditation or journaling?
Journaling. Yeah, I love journaling. I love reading my Bible and writing scriptures. And yeah, it helps me to focus.
Oh, great. So just finally, one piece of advice that you could give listeners to help them start living healthy right now. Yeah,
you don't need to wait till the new year. That would be my best advice And you don't need to have like a specific meal plan or like a specific routine. If you can just kind of plan your day to day, and give yourself a couple of options. Okay, these are a couple of breakfasts that I like, couple lunches, maybe pick 5 dinners that you and your family enjoy, and just get them on a rotation and make it easy on yourself. You're going to stick to it more than if you wake up one day and you're like, all right, I'm going to make a healthy recipe, and you find something with like 30 ingredients. Like, that's just not something you're going to do every day. So make it easy and simple. And if you don't usually eat like vegetables in general, make one today.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Yeah. And it has to be simple, doesn't it? And I think that's again with food where a lot of people go wrong is, there's so much choice out there, and people see all of these recipes online and these amazing meals, and they think, oh God, I couldn't possibly do that because there's just too much in it. But like you said, just to strip it back, find a few meals that you can kind of nail, make part of your regular family mealtime routine, and just keep repeating those and get more comfortable, I think, before you then start to move on and expand your repertoire a bit.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. I couldn't believe more. I think we're on the same page there for sure.
Great. So Ashley, do you want to share with us where we can find you and a little bit more about your business? And I think you've got something that you can offer our listeners as well to get started with building their own healthy and very normal life.
Yeah. So you can find my website, betterhealthbyaccountability.com. And I have like a freebie on there. It's how to live your life like a normal person without having FOMO, which I'm like, so I get FOMO really easily. So like if somebody tells me I have to be on this health journey and I can't have fun, forget it. I'm not going to do it. So go pick that freebie up. And also I hang out on Instagram mostly at Better Health by Accountability. So come say hi to me there, and you can ask me any questions. Our accountability packages are usually either 6 weeks or 12 weeks long. And if you just need a kick in the butt and you need somebody to help plan and give you guidance and keep you on track and make sure that you don't quit by, Thursday this time, reach out to us. And we have a lot of fun, and we make friends with our clients and stuff. So thank you
it definitely looks full.
Much for having me.
You're very welcome, Ashley. Yeah, and I follow you guys on Instagram, and I see you do have lots of fun, and there's lots of very normal inspiration there. So yeah, check Ashley out. I'll put all of the links in the show notes as well. So thanks again, Ashley. Yeah, it's been really great having you on as the very first guest. So I look forward to keeping in touch and connecting more in the future.
Well, I appreciate you, and I hope you have a wonderful day. And I can't wait to listen back at your first podcast, first guest podcast.
Yay. Thanks, Ashley.
Thank you.